My wife slept with whoever she wanted without hiding anything from me, and blamed me for all her troubles. But I became a man, opened my eyes and took revenge in such a way that she will never get over it. And was absolutely fuming with me, her husband, Jack Johnson. How did I know? Well, it wasn't exactly hard to figure out. On our drive home from a party hosted by her friends, Lisa and Joe Parker, she sat as far away from me as possible, arms crossed tightly, wearing a scowl sharp enough to curdle milk. Yeah, it was that bad. Why was she so mad? Honestly, she had every right to be. I'd managed to completely ruin her night. Talk about a spectacular blunder. Should I feel guilty? Probably. I'd embarrassed her, the mother of our 3 kids. Shame on me, right? So, what exactly did I do to mess things up? Simple. I grabbed the wrong key. Sounds harmless, but here's where it gets weird. The Parkers' parties have a, let's call it an interesting twist, one my dear wife apparently embraced without blinking an eye. Unfortunately for her, I wasn't exactly on board with the whole idea. This was our first time attending one of their get-togethers, but somehow, after 10 years of marriage, and had conveniently forgotten to mention that these parties ended with a little surprise. You see, all the wives were supposed to toss their house keys into a bowl. Then, each husband would randomly pick a key and spend the night with the woman it belonged to, yep, indulging in a night of, let's just say, illicit activities. As the night wrapped up and the true nature of the party hit me, I nearly lost it. I'd never been so furious with an. Grabbing her by the arm, I pulled her into the kitchen, my mind racing. Did you know how this party was supposed to end? I snapped, staring straight into her eyes. She didn't even flinch. In fact, she smirked, no regret, not a flicker. Yes, I knew. You knew, and you didn't think to tell me? I was boiling at this point. No, she replied, cool as ever. Because I knew you wouldn't agree if I did. She wasn't wrong. I didn't agree. Not one bit. You're absolutely right. I don't agree. And guess what? I still have a choice. Let's go home. We can't leave now. It'd be rude, she argued, her tone sharp but steady. You're putting me in an awkward position. Besides, it's just one night. It could bring some excitement into our marriage. I can do without this kind of excitement. I shot back. Let's just apologize and leave. We need some excitement, Jack. I need it. Just one night. I want to feel desired again, not just like a wife and mother. I stared at her, disbelief written all over my face. I'm not interested in this. And I'm not letting it happen. Now let's go. Ignoring her protests, I dragged her back into the living room where the infamous bowls sat in the center of a circle of eager faces. And tried to pull away, but I held firm. When we reached the bowl, I didn't waste a second. I wasn't informed about tonight's little arrangement, I announced, making sure my voice carried. And I'm not sharing my wife with anyone. I dug through the bowl until I found our house key. I recognized it instantly because of the blue keychain. Holding it up for everyone to see, I added, My marriage is sacred, and I don't condone this. A few people grumbled under their breath, but I didn't care. I turned to Anne, who was practically shaking with rage, her face flushed with embarrassment. That's when I laid it out, plain and simple. And it's your choice. Decide right now. Come with me and leave this nonsense behind, or stay, and never come home. I'm leaving. The room went dead silent. All eyes were on her. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke, her voice tight with frustration. I'm sorry for my husband's behavior, and said to the group, her voice dripping with forced politeness. I'd love to stay, but I suppose it's best if I leave. Begrudgingly, she followed me out to the car. The second we were inside, she rounded on me, her voice sharp as a blade. You're insufferable, she hissed. How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never be invited to one of their parties again. Embarrass you? I shot back, starting the car with more force than necessary. What about how you embarrassed me? You didn't even think to mention you planned to sleep with another man tonight. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. Well, you could have picked another woman too. We both would have enjoyed ourselves. I don't want another woman, Anne. I snapped, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I've been faithful to you, Always. And it makes me sick to realize that after 10 years of marriage, you want to be with someone else. It would have been just once, Jack. Just one night out of all the nights we've shared. That's not much to ask, is it? It's a hell of a lot to ask. I shot back, my voice rising. This isn't some minor thing, and it's huge. Frustration boiling over, I pulled the car over abruptly, tires kicking up gravel. Without thinking, I made a sharp U-turn, speeding back toward the Parkers' house. And let out a startled yelp, grabbing the door handle. What are you doing, Jack? If sleeping with another man means that much to you, then fine. I spat, my jaw clenched. I won't stop you. We screeched to a halt in front of the house, headlights casting long shadows across the lawn. I threw the car into park, my heart pounding. There's still time for you to enjoy your little adventure, I said bitterly. Her face went pale, her confidence crumbling. What are you saying? I'm saying you can go ahead and join them, and go find someone else to give you what I apparently can't. She stared at me, her expression torn. It's just an adventure, Jack. Something different. You're perfect, but I need this. Well, I don't. I shot back. I've been loyal to you, and I'm not about to change that now. But if you go through with this, it's over. Done. And hesitated, her hand resting on the door handle, trembling slightly. Can you pick me up in the morning? She asked, her voice small, almost hopeful. No, I replied coldly. I'm sure whoever you end up with will be happy to take you wherever you need to go. Her face twisted with frustration. You make it sound so dirty, Jack. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, and I shot back, my voice like ice. You're about to spend the night with a stranger. She sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping. It's just one night. It's not a big deal. Even 1 second would be too much, I said firmly. If you go through with this, we're done. She didn't seem to get it, or maybe she just didn't want to. You're overreacting, Jack. I'll be yours again in the morning, and you'll forget all about this. No, Anne, I said quietly but with finality, my gaze locked on hers. If you walk back into that house, I'll never want you again. I whispered, my voice low and filled with a finality I wasn't sure she believed. That won't happen, Jack. We're married, we'll get through this. Anne replied, her tone dismissive, like I was overreacting to something trivial. I shook my head slowly. If you go in, it's over. She hesitated for a brief moment, then with a defiant smile, opened the door. See you in the morning, Jack? No, you won't. I muttered under my breath as I drove away, leaving her standing alone in the driveway, her confidence etched into the darkness behind me. I kept hoping she'd call, admit she was wrong, maybe even beg me to come back, but that call never came. As I drove, my vision blurred with tears. Anne had chosen a stranger over me, over our marriage. My father's words echoed in my mind. If a woman's seriously considering sleeping with another man, she's already crossed the line. And it hit me like a punch to the chest. My marriage was over. But the real heartbreak wasn't just losing Anne. It was thinking about our kids, 9-year-old Natalie, 8-year-old Emma, and 4-year-old Jack Jr. How was I supposed to go on without seeing them every day? How do you explain to your children that their family fell apart because of something like this? Yet, as much as it tore me apart, I couldn't just sweep Anne's betrayal under the rug. Actions have consequences. The kids were spending the weekend at my mom's place, which gave me time to figure out my next steps. I drove aimlessly for about half an hour, holding on to a flicker of hope that Anne would call, say she'd made a mistake, ask me to come get her. But as the minutes ticked by, that hope faded, replaced by the cold reality that she'd made her choice. Eventually, I headed home. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone rang. For a split second, my heart raced, maybe it was her. But the caller ID crushed that hope. It wasn't Anne. Still, I answered. Hey, Jack, it's Ted Mason. The voice on the other end said cheerfully. Ted, one of the guys from the party. And gave me your number. She's really hoping you'll come back. Says she's excited for tonight, and thinks you should join in. You're a lucky guy, you know? Every man here's hoping to pick her key. She's been telling everyone that tonight's going to be unforgettable, and she wants you to be part of it. My grip tightened around the phone. It's getting pretty heated here. Ted continued, oblivious. Everyone's excited to see who they'll end up with tonight. You've still got time to come back and pick a key. There are some really attractive women here, Jack. They're ready to show you a great time. I snapped. Screw you, Ted Mason. I spat into the phone, my voice shaking with rage. And to hell with everyone at that party, including my unfaithful wife. I hope you all get what's coming to you. I hung up before he could respond, my hand trembling as I lowered the phone. The house felt emptier than ever when I walked inside, my mind spinning with anger and disbelief. Within 20 minutes, I'd packed 2 suitcases, just enough clothes for a week or two. I grabbed my laptop, my shaving kit, and loaded it all into the car. While rummaging through a drawer, I found our marriage certificate. With grim satisfaction, I tore it into 4 jagged pieces. Then I grabbed a hammer from the garage. It took several hard hits, but I flattened my wedding ring until it was nothing more than a dented, twisted piece of metal. When I was done, I placed the ruined ring and the shredded certificate on Anne's pillow, a silent farewell. Locking the front door behind me, I drove off into the night. I'd planned to find a motel a few miles outside of town, but before that, I found myself circling past the Parkers' house one last time. A few cars had already left. Some people were standing in pairs on the sidewalk, laughing, chatting like it was just any other night. And wasn't anywhere in sight. I figured she'd already moved on with her new partner. Maybe she'd even paired up with Joe Parker himself. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. The motel I eventually found was in a nearby town. It wasn't much, just a small, dimly lit place with an old neon sign flickering above the door, but it had a secluded parking lot in the back, which suited me just fine. I locked up the car, grabbed a 6-pack of Newcastle from the convenience store next door, and headed back to my room to unwind in front of the TV. The first 2 beers took the edge off, and just as I cracked open the third, my phone started ringing. It was Anne. I knew she wasn't calling for a ride, so I let it go to voicemail. Jack, you're being childish. Her message started. Ted told me what you said. How many times do I have to explain? It's just one night. One guy. A few hours. That doesn't make me a bad person. Yeah, it might sting a little, but I'll make it up to you in ways you can't even imagine when I get home tomorrow. You probably don't care, but since you took our key out of the bowl, they gave me another one. His name's Liam, seems like a nice guy. He promised not to pressure me. He's married, has kids too. Since you're at our place, I went to his. His wife and her boyfriend are staying in another room, so we won't be disturbing anyone when things heat up. You know how loud I get when you touch me. She let out a soft laugh. Jack, I know you're upset, but I swear I won't let him do anything we haven't already done. I told Liam we should keep it simple, stick to the basics. He's been with me before, mostly missionary, but maybe we'll mix it up a little. He agreed, especially since it's my first time with another man. He's even driving me home tomorrow. I'll shower, freshen up, and come back to you. No leftovers for you, baby. Sweet dreams. Love you. Get ready for some excitement in the morning. Listening to her message was like a knife to the gut. How did I end up married to someone so careless, so utterly blind to what she was throwing away? Sure, and had always been a little flighty, but I used to think it was part of her charm. Now, her recklessness was about to cost her everything, her marriage, her home, and probably even her kids. She didn't understand. I wasn't the kind of man who could just brush this off, not after she gave herself to someone else and had the audacity to flaunt it. I should have ignored her message. Should have let it sit. But I couldn't help myself. I dialed her number. She picked up on the third ring. Hey, babe, she said, her voice low. Liam and I just got into bed, so I can't talk long. Shut up, Anne. I cut in, my voice ice cold. This is the last time you'll ever hear from me. You have no idea what you've done, but you're about to find out. Enjoy your night with Liam because when you wake up tomorrow, our marriage is over. Got it? You're finished. There was a pause, and then her voice wavered. Jack, where are you? Don't be like that. I never thought I'd say this. I interrupted. But I hate you more than I ever loved you. Expect to hear from my lawyer next week. And with that I hung up. 30 seconds later, my phone rang again. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Jack, she started, her voice shaking. Why are you doing this? How can you say those things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you just let me have this one night? Liam and I are just getting started, and now you're ruining everything. I don't even know if I can enjoy this now. We are not getting divorced. I'll be home tomorrow, and we can talk this out. I'd come home now, but I promised Liam I'd be with him tonight. Please try to understand. He got my key. I told him he could have me. I can't go back on that now. She hesitated, and I heard her whispering softly, probably to him. Then she let out a breathy sigh. Oh God, yes. Liam's ready. I have to go. I love you, Jack. I'll always love you. See you in the morning? My stomach twisted into knots. I felt sick, but I couldn't stop myself. I called her back. This time, the phone rang several times before going to voicemail. No doubt Liam had already claimed her. I left her one final message. And it's obvious you're with him now, enjoying everything he's giving you, every new sensation. You've shattered my heart, and I'll never forgive you for it. You kept your promise to Liam, but you couldn't keep your vows to me. You're nothing more than an adulterer now. From this moment on, you can be with as many men as you want, but you've lost me forever. And never called back. And I knew why. Once she got involved with another man, nothing else mattered. She became consumed. I wasn't even sure if she listened to my message. Not that it made a difference. Our marriage was done. I downed the rest of the six-pack, trying not to picture her in bed with Liam, but the images came anyway. I didn't want to imagine her doing all the things she used to do with me, but I knew she would. And had always been, expressive in bed, and tonight wouldn't be any different. The beer finally numbed me, and at some point, I passed out, tears still wet on my face. When I woke up a few hours later, the harsh reality came crashing down all over again. My wife had betrayed me. And now, I had to figure out how to protect my kids, get rid of Anne, and make sure every single person at that party paid. We lived in Norwood, Mississippi, a quiet, picturesque town along the Gulf Coast. Fortunately, Mississippi recognized adultery as legal grounds for divorce. That might give me a shot at avoiding child support, and, if I played my cards right, even gaining custody of the kids. I needed a good lawyer. A damn good one. At 7:30, I called my mom and told her everything. She was just as blindsided as I was. She promised to keep quiet for now and not say anything to the kids. I told her I'd pick them up once I had everything in order. As much as it hurt to admit, and would probably get custody, at least temporarily. She had always been a good mother. But after last night, I couldn't see her the same way ever again. After hanging up, I drove to a nearby diner for breakfast. Just as I was about to park, my phone rang. And I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, she called again. When I still didn't pick up, she left a message. Through choked sobs, she pleaded. Jack, please answer. What do you mean you might never see me again? What divorce papers? You can't leave me, I won't let you. Our kids need both of us. How could you rip up our marriage certificate and throw away your wedding ring? You swore you'd wear it forever. I didn't think you'd take it this far. I love you so much, Jack. I just needed that special night with Liam. And it was amazing. He made me feel alive again. I'd forgotten what it was like to laugh and scream at the same time. But as incredible as it was, you're my man, Jack. You're the only one I want. I can fix this. Please come home and let me show you how much I love you. Her voice cracked, and then she broke down into more sobs. Why can't you understand? She pleaded. I just needed one night with someone new. Someone who desired me. Who wanted me. It felt so good to know another man found me irresistible. You have no idea how much that means to a woman my age. But it was just sex, Jack. That's all it was, just a few times. I swear I'll never do it again. Please, let's talk. You and the kids mean everything to me. I stood outside the diner, frozen. Had she been feeling this way our entire marriage, just waiting for the moment to act on it? After a decade together, was this what it had come to? And had always been beautiful, shoulder-length dark brown hair, piercing blue eyes, and a figure that turned heads. Sure, Her hips had widened a little after having 3 kids, but she still got plenty of attention wherever we went. And yet here she was, talking about needing to feel desired by another man. As if I hadn't spent years making sure she knew exactly how much I loved and wanted her. I brought her flowers just because. Took her out on weekly date nights. Always made sure she felt special. But apparently, none of that mattered. She had wanted something new, something exciting. And in chasing that thrill, she had destroyed everything we had built together. I couldn't forgive her for that. I walked into the diner, ordered a coffee, and sat by the window, staring blankly outside as the weight of it all settled in. Anne's betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She hadn't just slept with another man, she had ripped apart our trust, our family, our entire life together. And for what? A few hours of feeling desirable to a stranger? It was beyond comprehension. I knew what I had to do. I needed the best divorce attorney I could find. Someone ruthless. Someone who would fight for me to get custody of the kids and make sure and face real consequences for what she had done. Mississippi law was on my side when it came to infidelity, and I was going to use every advantage I had. Finishing my coffee, I stepped outside, took a deep breath, and pulled out my phone. I dialed the number of a lawyer I had heard about, a no-nonsense, hard-hitting attorney known for winning divorce cases. It was time to take the next step. And yet, she still turned heads wherever she went. So where was this sudden need to feel desired by another man coming from? It didn't make sense. I had always made sure she knew how much I loved and wanted her. I surprised her with flowers, planned weekly date nights, and constantly reminded her how beautiful she was. We weren't some couple that had drifted apart, not from where I stood. I truly believed we had a strong marriage. A deep connection. I even bought her alluring lingerie, reaffirmed my love daily, and until last night, I thought we had an amazing sex life. We were intimate at least 3 times a week, and she never failed to reach multiple climaxes. What more could she have possibly wanted? What had I overlooked? Despite my stomach being in knots, I walked into the diner, found an empty table, and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my food but went through at least 6 cups of coffee, trying to clear my head. I had never felt so lost. So empty. So utterly defeated. I had heard people talk about wishing for death before, and now I finally understood what they meant. The weight of betrayal crushed me, and if it weren't for my kids, I wasn't sure how I would have kept going. But I had to. They were the only thing anchoring me, keeping me from drowning in the wreckage of Anne's choices. That realization gave me strength. I had to push forward. I just needed a plan. Anne called me nonstop that day, but I sent every call to voicemail. She pleaded for understanding, but not once did she apologize. There was no remorse, no true acknowledgement of what she had done, just repeated justifications. According to her, they had only slept together 3 times that night, and once in the morning. That's it, she said, as if that was supposed to make it easier to stomach. She also admitted she might not have turned off her phone in time and worried I had overheard her with Liam. I hope you didn't hear too much, she added. I had to give her credit, she knew exactly how to twist the knife. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could be so blind, so foolish. But if there was one silver lining in all of this, it was that I now had more than enough audio evidence of her infidelity to use in court. I didn't know if it would be enough to guarantee full custody, but it was certainly damning. Tomorrow, I would start putting things in motion. I needed to find a solid divorce lawyer and gather as much evidence as possible. Later that evening, I visited my kids at my mom's house. She told me and had already called to check on them, and to ask where I was. Mom had told her the truth, that I was devastated and didn't want to speak to her. Anne apparently broke down in tears. I don't understand, she had sobbed. Mom reassured her that no man would accept his wife flaunting a night with another man in his face. And then asked if she should pick up the kids, but Mom convinced her to let them stay a few more days until things settled. The kids were thrilled to see me, wrapping their arms around me the moment I walked through the door. Where's Mom? They asked. I forced a smile and told them she was busy with a special project, and that they'd be staying with Grandma a little while longer. And yet, she still turned heads wherever she went. So where was this sudden need to feel desired by another man coming from? It didn't make sense. I had always made sure she knew how much I loved and wanted her. I surprised her with flowers, planned weekly date nights, and constantly reminded her how beautiful she was. We weren't some couple that had drifted apart, not from where I stood. I truly believed we had a strong marriage. A deep connection. I even bought her alluring lingerie, reaffirmed my love daily, and until last night, I thought we had an amazing sex life. We were intimate at least 3 times a week, and she never failed to reach multiple climaxes. What more could she have possibly wanted? What had I overlooked? Despite my stomach being in knots, I walked into the diner, found an empty table, and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my food but went through at least 6 cups of coffee, trying to clear my head. I had never felt so lost. So empty. So utterly defeated. I had heard people talk about wishing for death before, and now I finally understood what they meant. The weight of betrayal crushed me, and if it weren't for my kids, I wasn't sure how I would have kept going. But I had to. They were the only thing anchoring me, keeping me from drowning in the wreckage of Anne's choices. That realization gave me strength. I had to push forward. I just needed a plan. Anne called me nonstop that day, but I sent every call to voicemail. She pleaded for understanding, but not once did she apologize. There was no remorse, no true acknowledgement of what she had done, just repeated justifications. According to her, they had only slept together 3 times that night, and once in the morning. "That's it," she said, as if that was supposed to make it easier to stomach. She also admitted she might not have turned off her phone in time and worried I had overheard her with Liam. "I hope you didn't hear too much," she added. I had to give her credit, she knew exactly how to twist the knife. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could be so blind, so foolish. But if there was one silver lining in all of this, it was that I now had more than enough audio evidence of her infidelity to use in court. I didn't know if it would be enough to guarantee full custody, but it was certainly damning. Tomorrow, I would start putting things in motion. I needed to find a solid divorce lawyer and gather as much evidence as possible. Later that evening, I visited my kids at my mom's house. She told me and had already called to check on them, and to ask where I was. Mom had told her the truth, that I was devastated and didn't want to speak to her. Anne apparently broke down in tears. "I don't understand," she had sobbed. Mom reassured her that no man would accept his wife flaunting a night with another man in his face. And then asked if she should pick up the kids, but Mom convinced her to let them stay a few more days until things settled. The kids were thrilled to see me, wrapping their arms around me the moment I walked through the door. "Where's Mom?" they asked. I forced a smile and told them she was busy with a special project, and that they'd be staying with Grandma a little while longer. We played games, had dinner together, and I kissed them goodnight before heading back to the motel. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. Before calling it a night, I found myself taking a detour, driving past my house one last time. As I pulled up a few doors down, a fresh wave of grief hit me. Tears burned in my eyes as I realized what I had lost, something that could never be repaired. What struck me as strange was the lack of any unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Maybe Liam had parked in the garage, or maybe he wasn't there at all. A single light glowed from the kitchen window, hinting that Anne might be alone. Despite everything, despite the betrayal that still cut like a knife, I felt a twinge of concern. Against my better judgment, I parked a block away and quietly made my way around the side of the house, stopping where I could peek through the kitchen window. There she was. Sitting at the table, a nearly empty bottle of Grey Goose beside her. Her hair was a mess, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and she was wrapped in a robe. Her head rested on the table, eyes closed, surrounded by a pile of used tissues. She had been crying. For a brief moment, a flicker of sympathy stirred in me. But then, just as quickly, it was replaced by the memory of what she had done. She had made her choices. Now she had to live with them. I turned away, resisting the urge to knock on the door. Instead, I walked back to my car and drove off, feeling the smallest hint of satisfaction. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally beginning to understand the weight of her actions. If she needed comfort, she could go to Liam. Monday morning. Morning came, and I had a full day ahead. I stopped by the diner for breakfast again, but this time, I actually managed to eat. Scrambled eggs, toast, black coffee. Once I finished, I called my mom to check in on the kids, reassuring them I'd be home soon. Next, I contacted my office, letting my assistant know I'd be out for the next couple of days dealing with personal matters. She sounded concerned, but I told her I'd explain later. During my last year at Ole Miss, I had roomed with two close friends, Doug Lewis and Liam McRae. Over the years, we had kept in touch, though we didn't see each other as often as we used to. While I had pursued a degree in computer science, Doug had gone into business administration, and Lee had taken up law. If there was anyone I could turn to for guidance right now, it was them. I called Doug first, asking if he and Lee could meet me for drinks that evening. "I need your advice on something serious," I told him. Doug didn't hesitate. "Yeah, of course. Let's meet at the beach bar around 5. I arrived early and took a seat on the patio, staring out at the waves. The rhythmic crash of the tide did little to calm my nerves. Lee showed up first, Doug 10 minutes later. After greeting each other, we settled at a table, ordered beers, and raised our glasses for a quick toast. Doug was the first to speak. "All right, Jack, what's going on? Your call sounded heavy." I exhaled, bracing myself. "And cheated on me. And she didn't even try to hide it." Their reactions were immediate. "Jesus," Doug muttered, shaking his head. "You're serious?" Lee asked. I nodded. "Yeah. And the worst part? She acts like I'm the one overreacting. Like I should just accept it and move on." Doug let out a low whistle. "That's rough, man. I can't believe she'd do that. And without remorse," Lee added. "She really thinks this isn't a big deal?" "Exactly," I said. "So I'm thinking about divorce. Getting back at Liam. But more than anything, I need to fight for custody of my kids." Lee leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. "Divorce is definitely an option. But getting full custody? That's going to be tough unless you can prove she's unfit as a mother. If she's bringing men around the kids, then you've got something to work with. Otherwise..." His voice trailed off, and I already knew what he meant. This fight was going to be an uphill battle. Lee sighed, taking a slow sip of his beer. "If she's a good mom, the courts will lean in her favor. You'll probably end up paying child support." I exhaled, nodding. "I'm okay with that, as long as I can see my kids often." Lee gave a small shrug. "The courts usually prefer both parents to stay involved, unless one of you is a danger to the kids. But if Anne's been a good mother all these years, getting full custody will be tough." Doug leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "What about finances? Anne's a stay-at-home mom, and I'm guessing you make solid money. How are your savings and investments looking?" I ran a hand over my face, thinking for a moment. "I've got checking, savings, a 401k, an IRA, and a few other investments. Probably around 700,000 to 800,000 total." Doug let out a low whistle. "All right. Well, the court will likely split that evenly. And will probably get the house and custody of the kids. But if you can prove her infidelity, you might be able to avoid paying alimony. Do you know a good divorce lawyer?" I asked, getting straight to the point. Lee nodded. "One of the partners at my firm, Sandra Simmons, is one of the best family law attorneys in Mississippi. Want me to set up a meeting?" "The sooner, the better," I said without hesitation. "I'll also look into ways to protect some of your assets," Doug added. "Send me all your financial details, and I'll get on it." We toasted once more, had a few more drinks, and eventually called it a night. For the first time in days, I felt a tiny sliver of relief. The road ahead was still long, but at least now I had a plan. On the way back to the motel, my phone rang, and again. I hesitated, then sighed. I'd have to face her sooner or later. Pulling over, I answered. "What do you want, Anne?" I asked, my voice flat. "What do you think I want, Jack?" Her voice trembled. "I want my husband to come home. Unfortunately, your little escapade with Liam makes that impossible," I replied coldly. "Don't say that, Jack. Please, don't you dare say that." Her voice cracked. "It was just one night. After 10 years, that's not grounds for divorce. Infidelity is most certainly grounds for divorce in Mississippi," I shot back. Why do you keep calling it cheating? She snapped. It was just one night with someone new. Just a fling. I let out a bitter laugh. When a married woman has sex with another man, whether it's for one night or 1 second, it's cheating, Anne. She sobbed into the phone. Please, Jack, you can't do this to me. You did this to yourself. My grip on the wheel tightened. What the hell happened to you? Are you on something? Did you have a complete mental breakdown? Because you sure as hell didn't care about me, our kids, or what this would do to our family. You just had to have your night with Liam. And now, you're going to face the consequences. I never wanted it to be like this, Jack, she whispered. I didn't think I was hurting you. I just wanted to try something new. I love you. It wasn't about me, though, was it? I said, my voice laced with exhaustion. It was about you. What you needed. Silence. That's what brought us here, Anne. I continued. You put yourself first. You didn't think about me. You didn't think about the kids. You just thought about what you wanted. A special night just for yourself. Another choked sob on the other end of the line. But I had nothing left to give her. I let out a bitter laugh, the anger thick in my voice. Well, congratulations, Your Highness. You got your wish. And it cost you your marriage. It probably trashed your reputation with your family and friends, too. Maybe one day I'll forgive you. But I'll never forget. And I'll make damn sure everyone knows what you did, just like you mocked me for being upset about your affair. Let's see how you handle it when your own confession comes back to haunt you. How many times was it, Anne? 4? Oh God, Jack, please, she sobbed. My parents would be devastated if they found out. Too bad, Anne. You should have thought of that before you made your bed. Now you've got to lie in it. I shook my head in disbelief. You act like this is no bigger deal than a parking ticket or forgetting to return a library book. You threw away a solid 10-year marriage, a man who adored you, for one night of cheap thrills with a guy who didn't give a damn about you. My voice sharpened. Does it feel good, Anne? That Liam slept with you 4 times, and it cost you your family? I didn't have to lose anything, Jack, she snapped. You should have loved me enough to support me and let me do it. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you out of your mind? There isn't a single sane man on this planet who would support his wife cheating just because she wanted to try something new. That's not how marriage works, Anne. And you damn well knew that. She sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. I didn't expect you to be this upset, she admitted. I mean, seriously, Jack. What's the big deal about letting another man have me for a night? It doesn't mean I love you any less. I've heard about couples doing this at Parker parties, and it intrigued me. Why can't a husband or wife have a fling with someone nice and safe? Enjoy the experience? Explore new sensations? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. She actually believed this. I just wanted to experience another man's touch. She went on, as if she were explaining a hobby she wanted to try. It didn't change my love for you, Jack. It just meant I needed something different, just once. Then I would have come back to you, fully committed, and never done it again. That meant you didn't respect me, I said, my fury rising. I begged you not to do this. Over and over. And you just smiled and said, "See you in the morning, Jack." My voice shook. You threw away everything we built over 10 years. You tossed aside the vows that meant everything to me, just so you could get your little thrill. We created 3 beautiful children out of the love we had. We were a family. And you willingly gave away the part of yourself that made our children, to some stranger. For what? A good time? A one-night stand? It was just one night, she repeated, exasperated. You need to accept that and move on. I let out a slow, bitter breath. No. It was a betrayal. Of me. Of our family. Of our sacred vows. Of any respect you ever had for me. You wanted to be with another man. And you did it. Congratulations, Anne. But in doing so, you threw away everything you supposedly valued. Silence. Then she exploded. Damn it, Jack. Why are you being so stubborn? Why can't you understand that it was just something I needed? I'm yours forever. Nothing has changed. Everything's changed, I said flatly. You're not mine anymore. And I don't understand why you can't see that. I pleaded with you not to do this. And now you expect me to forgive and forget? I exhaled sharply. This pain? It's gonna last a lifetime. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before delivering the final blow. I found a lawyer. Tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce, citing infidelity. I'll name Liam. And I'll name anyone else from your little party that I can identify. Imagine their reactions when they find out you are the one responsible for breaking up their little circle. For ruining their reputations. A shaky breath came from the other end of the line. Go to hell, Aunt, I said. And take your cheating friends with you. The moment I walked into Sandra Simmons' office, I knew I had the right attorney. She didn't waste time with small talk. Didn't offer fake sympathy. She got straight to business. And that was exactly what I needed. Sandra leaned back in her chair, folded her hands, and got straight to the point. Why do you want a divorce, and what are you hoping to achieve? I didn't hesitate. I want a clean split. She can have the house in exchange for less cash. I know getting full custody is a long shot, but I want unrestricted visitation without paying child support. Then, I slid my phone across the desk, playing the audio files of and freely admitting to sleeping with Liam. Sandra listened, shaking her head in disbelief. Your wife was careless admitting to her affair in a way that can be used against her in court, she said. We may need a voice recognition expert to confirm it's her, but unless we get an extremely biased judge, this recording should hold up just fine. We spent the next hour discussing my plans for Liam and the others from the wife-swapping event. Sandra was doubtful we could get any kind of financial compensation from them, but she had another idea: exposure. Public shame can be a powerful weapon, she said. If we handle this right, their reputations will take a serious hit. That was more than enough for me. After handing over my deposit, I made one final request. Serve, and as soon as possible. Sandra nodded. It won't take long. I'll give you a heads up before it happens. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up the kids from my mom's and drove them back to Anne's house. She opened the door with a warm smile, hugging and kissing the kids. Then, she turned to me, her eyes soft with hope, and reached out, maybe for a hug, maybe to touch my hand. I stepped back. Her smile wavered, and tears welled up in her eyes. Please, Jack, she whispered, pleading. Just stay. I shook my head. I can't. For the kids' sake, I wanted to make this transition as normal as possible. They needed stability, and right now, their home was with their mother. So, I arranged to pick them up on Friday for the weekend. And looked like she was struggling. And for a split second, a part of me felt sorry for her. But then I reminded myself, her pain wasn't any worse than what I was going through. This was the bed she made. Now she had to lie in it. By Wednesday, I was back at work. I couldn't afford to neglect my job, I needed the income. But more than that, I needed the distraction. If I let myself dwell on Anne's betrayal, it would consume me. And I couldn't afford to fall apart. My kids depended on me. Thursday night, I met Doug and Lee for dinner at the Oyster House. Over shucked oysters and dirty martinis, I updated them on the kids and the divorce. Doug was still working on ways to protect some of my assets. It won't be much, he admitted, but it'll help in the long run. I gave him the green light. Every bit counted. Then, we shifted to something far more interesting, taking down the wife-swapping group. Lee had an idea. We have a friend at the Bayou Sun Herald. He's a reporter. If you can give him the address of the Parker house and the approximate times they meet, he can expose them. He'll write an editorial, Doug added. Something about the underground wife-swapping scene, hinting at local business owners being involved, without naming names. That way, there's no slander risk, but it'll still stir up trouble. I smirked. The city's religious crowd is gonna have a field day with that. Doug grinned. That's the point. I raised my glass. Let's make their little world crash down around them. We toasted, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to satisfaction. I gave Lee what little information I had, and he assured me he'd take it from there. We shook hands and parted ways. For the first time in a long while, I felt something close to relief. The weekend with my kids was exactly what I needed. We went shopping, caught a movie at the Grand 18, and spent an entire day at the beach, swimming, building sandcastles, and tossing a frisbee until the sun dipped below the horizon. They were my everything now, my number one priority. No matter what happened, I swore I'd never abandon them. On Monday, Lee called with an update. Good news, my reporter friend is already working on the story. He even snapped some photos of couples entering the Parker house. Names? I asked. No, just blurred faces, Lee replied. But in a town like ours? It won't take long for people to figure out who's who. Should hit the front page by the end of the week. I smirked. Perfect. And meanwhile kept calling. Over and over, she pleaded for me to come home, swearing she'd do anything to make me forget what she did. But not once did she apologize. Not once did she admit she was wrong. By Wednesday, my lawyer called with an update. And will be served with divorce papers on Friday. Then Doug called with even better news. He'd managed to move about a third of my money into accounts under my children's names, shielding it from any future claims. Later that same day, Lee had another update. His reporter friend had been staking out the Parker house and was planning to capture even more photos at their next wife-swapping event, scheduled for Friday night. He also wants to interview you for the article, Lee said. I didn't hesitate. Let's do it. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a real sense of closure starting to take shape. On Friday, my lawyer called around 2:30. And has been served. I knew what was coming next. And sure enough, my phone rang within minutes. I answered calmly. Hi, Anne. Her voice was sharp, furious. What did you do, Jack? I filed for divorce, I said evenly. Just like I told you I would. There will be no divorce, she snapped, her voice cracking. Spending one night with another man isn't cheating, Jack. I exhaled slowly, keeping my voice level. I have to disagree, Anne. Having sex with someone other than your spouse is infidelity. That's how the law sees it. That's how I see it. I could practically hear her tears through the phone. Why are you so angry with me, Jack? I love you. Liam and I had an affair, that's all. That's all? I repeated, my grip tightening around the phone. You had sex with another man. You betrayed me. And now, you'll face the consequences. There was a sharp intake of breath on her end, as if she wanted to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. Goodbye, Anne, I said coldly. I hope you have a nice life. Then I hung up. The hardest part of all of this? Despite everything, part of me still loved her. I hated that truth. I loathed it. But no matter how much I had loved her, the trust was shattered beyond repair. And that meant our marriage was over. That night, I knew I should stay away from the Parker house. I had no reason to go near that place again. But I couldn't resist. So I drove past. Just once. Just to see. Anne's car wasn't there. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. She could have arrived with someone else. Couples were usually required to attend together, but I knew they'd made an exception for her before. Who's to say they wouldn't do it again?